Hello, I am Gaston Gomez. Coming up next on Global Perspectives, a heart-to-heart conversation about culture and education. Welcome to Global Perspectives. I am your host, Gaston Gomez, ELL Family and Community Outreach Program Manager. I have the privilege to introduce you to my friend, Adriana Blackmer. Hi, Adriana. Welcome to Global Perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
No, it is an honor to have you. So tell me about you. Where are you from?
Well, I am from Veracruz. Veracruz is a state located in Mexico, right on the Gulf of Mexico. It's just kind of tucked in right on the Gulf of Mexico, so we have the water and beautiful weather. But I'm from the port, El Puerto de Veracruz. So I grew up in a nice sunny beach, very different from here, but that's where I'm from.
And it is on the coast, you said, of Gulf of the
Right on the Gulf of Mexico, yes, yes.
And so I know because of the location, you have a lot of people from Cuba immigrating to Veracruz, directly to Veracruz, correct?
Right. Well, it's really close. Like if you stare at the ocean, you can actually kind of see it. So it is really, really close. So a lot of people come to Veracruz from Cuba. So we do have a lot of people and food mixes and things like that. So,
Awesome,
yes.
awesome. So tell me about your education. Growing up, did you go to a private school, public school?
In Mexico, unfortunately, public school is not really the best curriculum-wise. So I had the privilege to go to a private school my entire education. So from elementary school, I went to a school where it was a newer school at the time. They're actually celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and now they are like, you know, they're not just an elementary school, but it's an elementary school and middle school, high school, and college. So they've grown a lot. It's a great school, but it was founded by one of my mom's mentors. So I had the privilege to go to this school, which was a great school, and it really helped me because they were not just educators, but they were family oriented, and it really helped with every aspect of your education. Not just, okay, you have all this knowledge, but you also have this development as a person. So it was a really nice way to grow up in from 1st to 6th grade, and then once you 7th through 9th grade, you go to middle school. And I went to a private Catholic school and also high school. And after that, I went to college for the same private school.
So to those schools that you went to, was it just for girls or boys or a mix?
We had a mix. You had a choice. You could either go to a boys' school, girls' school, or you can do a mix. And my mother thought that it would be a better overall, education, right, if you were in both. Because, honestly, your society is mixed. You're not always going to be with all girls or all boys. So
that's great. Well, thanks for sharing that. In growing up, were your parents involved in your education? Were they asking questions to your teachers or coming to meetings and often, or not really involved?
I think in that respect, in Mexico, it's very different. And you can almost tell by my parents from Mexico here because they feel like it's the same way. In Mexico, you basically just follow the rules. You sign up, you sign your child, and you do everything they tell you to do. Unless it's something really, really big, they really don't want you there. They just follow the curriculum and they do the best for your child. And obviously they want you to help with homework and things like that academics at home. But the school is the one that does everything. And again, because I went to a Catholic school, everything from religion to social, they take care of everything. So that it is very different. My mother basically dropped us off in school, picks us up in school, and that was it. So that was a little different from here, where we have parent-teacher conferences, and we have PTAs, and we want parents to come and volunteer, and it is very different. And like I said, I've had parents who are like, can I really go anytime I want? It's like, yes, you can just come in and, you know, have lunch with your child, talk to your teacher anytime you want. If you have anything, any suggestion, any ideas, please come and, you know, share it with us. So it's a little bit different.
Awesome. So where do you learn English? Do you learn English growing up as a child, or in high school or college?
To be honest with you, it wasn't something that you learn. I think nowadays is getting better. It's part of the curriculum. But back the time where I went to school, it wasn't part of the curriculum. So I really didn't think anything of it. You know, you grow up and everybody speaks Spanish, so you don't think of it of being important. My mother, around the time I was about to graduate from high school, she just thought that to have, you know, an extra step on that education, she thought, you know what, it would be very important for you to learn another language. So the way to do that, she signed me up on an exchange program, and where you go and you live with another family and you go to school. And so I had the opportunity to go to Seattle, Washington. I lived with this family for 10 months, and I took my senior year again in the school system, and that's how I learned English. It was one of those drop you off and you learn. So
you had no choice.
I had no choice. I had no choice. That's how you learn. But it was a very exciting, scary, but it was a very good experience. I learned a lot, not just the language, but I learned a lot about the culture and, you know, the differences between the countries.
Interesting. Was the attendance mandatory in your schools?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that is very important.
So you had to go to school every day.
You have to go to school every day. That is very important. It is the law. You have to go to school. You don't have to go to college, but you have to finish school to 12th grade. It used to be that you needed to go through 6th grade at least, but now it's mandatory that you finish high school.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And so when you moved to the U.S., well, first of all, when did you move to the U.S.?
I met this very nice American guy who cannot speak Spanish to save his life. So we moved here. Actually, we moved to Massachusetts. That's where he's from. And so we started our life there. And I moved 1999. That's when I came to live to the United States permanently.
And why Anne Arundel County?
My husband's job brought us here. We've kind of moved around, but my husband's job, that's how we ended up in this county. So.
And I know you have children in our schools.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
Yes.
As a parent, but also you work for the school system as a bilingual facilitator. So tell me about that, and you know, what is it that you can see different from your education, and then you see your children's growing up here in America and going to our school, public schools, which is not private, but you can tell the difference. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
It is a big difference. It is a big difference. And I have one of each. I have one in elementary school in 2nd grade. I have one in 6th grade, middle school, and then I have a 9th grader. So I have one of each. But it is very different from the time. Like I used to go to school from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. because you have to go home and have lunch at home.
Right. So no lunch at school. It was not provided. Correct?
No, it was not provided. Certainly optional. You could have a snack, but it wasn't. You know,
and you
part
had
of
to
the
pay
school.
for it.
And you had to pay for
the snack.
You had to pay for the snack.
No.
And it was everybody. The bell will ring, and everybody would just get out of their classes and just kind of mayhem. Not like here where you go by grade and they have lunch and then they go to recess. It was just mayhem from 7 to 1 again, because for us in Mexico, everything shuts down in the middle of the day, so the whole family can go and sit down and have lunch together, because family is very important in Mexico. So that was one of the big things. So at 1 o'clock, you will go home, you have your lunch, and if the further you went to school, then you sometimes will have to go back to school, like at 4 o'clock for sports or any other extracurricular activities. So that was the way it was. So that's a big difference for me. We're here, you go to school all day, you have lunch there, so you don't see your family until the very end of the day. So that was one of the first differences. Another difference was you don't get your books. Like in Mexico, you get a list of all the books and supplies that you need, which sometimes our families find that a little different, because you don't need textbooks. Because you don't get the textbooks. You don't go to a bookstore and buy them. You get them here, and you keep them in school, and that's how you do it. A locker room. You don't have lockers. You just keep your stuff with you. And one thing that I just encounter doing parent-teacher conferences with some of our parents, they didn't realize that the kids sometimes move from classroom to classroom. Like in middle school, they have to go from math to biology or whatever class they have. Well, in Mexico, you get to your classroom first thing in the morning, and you don't move. That is your seat. Your teachers move. They come in and out, but you don't move. So to them, it's like, well, why does he have two different teachers? And I don't see him in this classroom. It's like, well, because they move. It's a little bit different than we do in Mexico. So there are some differences, but I have to say I enjoy my kids. The schools they have are incredible. The teachers they've had are nothing but caring, and they're always worried about how they're doing and how they can do better. And every time I sit down with one of the teachers to talk about not just my children, but one of the ELL students, they're always so willing to, we can do this to help them do more. We can set up an extra intervention or something else. Even if it takes time from their day, they're so willing to always help. And I'm so blessed because I really had great experiences with our teachers. Are fantastic. So as a parent, I'm thrilled to be here. And as an employee, I just honestly really love working for the system.
Great, great. So going back to the lunch not being free, I would like for you to tell our viewers the importance of unity when it comes to family for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That we have to be together. You have to be together to enjoy those 3 meals, and that will be pretty much the part of it, right? Of unity.
Yes, and again, to me, that was one of the first things that was so different. Even before I had kids, it was difficult for me not to sit down with everybody and have lunch together, in our big lunch with all our fixings and soup and rice and beans. And it was just very different than just having a sandwich or, chips and move right along, keep going with your day. Because to us, everything shuts down and you get home and you talk about what you've done so far and about your day. And it's not just a meal, it's an experience. Mm-hmm. And it's hard, with the busy life that we live and all the activities that we have, not just in school, but we have sports and, my children play all the sports in the world and we're so busy, but we always make time to sit down, even if it's just a half hour, but we sit down together and we talk because I want to know. I want to know what they did in school, and I want to be involved. As a parent, I want to be involved. So I want to know, okay, what's going on in school right now? And that is, for me, that is the way to do it. Just to sit down and enjoy the meal, and you got to talk to me and tell me.
Good. And also siesta or nap time is not typical in our country. So I know in Mexico it's typical to have a few minutes of siesta or nap.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Right after lunch.
And again, I grew up in a town that is extremely hot. So we're talking in the winter time it's about between 80 and 90 degrees. And in the summertime, it could get anywhere from 115 to 120. So it gets extremely hot in a way that when you get home after you have that big meal, you need that, just that little nap to give you that power to get you through the rest of the day. So.
Oh, great. So thanks for sharing that. So when you moved to the U.S., you told me you were in Massachusetts, and then you moved to Maryland to a different county?
Yes.
Right? And so how was the transition from one state to another county in Maryland and then to Anne Arundel County? And I believe there's special education involved when it came to transitioning?
Transitioning from Massachusetts to, we moved to Kent County on the Eastern Shore. It was a little bit different because it was my first encounter with the school system. My daughter was, at the time, she was just going into pre-K. So it was my first, like really, okay, now I'm a parent and she's in a public school and everything was new. Again, a school bus. We don't use school buses. So to me, that was very different. And my husband saying, you have to let her get on the bus.
So that was
she's going to be okay.
That was a cultural shock for you.
Yes, yes. It was like, do I have to just let her go? She's like, you have to let her go. She's going to be fine. We're going to take her to school and we're going to bring her back and she's going to be fine. But to me, that was so new that I had no idea. So it took me a little bit. She was fine. She was like, bye. But I was the one that, okay, should I follow it? Would it be okay? It was different. So everything from the school bus to the way the school day worked, to lunch, packing a lunch again, or giving her lunch money, or, just all of those little things. It really was different. Then same thing with my other son. It went fine. But my third child, he was different. From the very beginning, it was just a little difference in him, and I didn't know. Nobody really knew. Doctor kept saying, well, maybe he's the baby. Maybe he's just not interested in participating right now at the time. But I knew, and as a parent, you just know when there's something. And so we lived in Wicomico County at the time, and somebody told me, hey, you should call Infants and Toddlers Program. I didn't know it existed. And I looked it up, and they were so wonderful. They gave me an appointment. I went in. They tested him, and they started, giving him therapies and helping him. And it took a little while. It was a little process, but it was great. It was fantastic. It was like, okay, I'm not crazy. They are really, being wonderful and helpful and giving me all the tools that I needed to help my child, who eventually got diagnosed, and he's in the autistic spectrum. And then when we moved from Wicomico to Anne Arundel County, it was wonderful. I literally had to do nothing. The paperwork came through. They took over. I got a call, and immediately they took over the services. And all of the special educators that he's had have been nothing but wonderful and supportive, and they're all there to help him through every step of the way. He's in second grade now, and he just has nothing but the best of help, and everybody understands what he's going through, what I'm going through. And so I'm always a big advocate in our schools for special ed because they're wonderful.
Well, thanks for sharing this. And I know it's very personal to you, so I appreciate you sharing this with our viewers. And so you're talking about special education, but home-based, correct? When he started with services,
Right.
special ed services, with
Yes.
ITP or infants and toddlers.
Yes.
And then transition from home services into the school.
Into the school system.
So it was smooth. It was a smooth transition
It
as
was a
well.
smooth
from county
transition.
to county, but also to school.
Yeah, from county to county, it was a smooth transition. And the way they did it, it went from home base, then they started taking him into the school, even though he wasn't in school, but they were giving him therapy in school so he could get used to the idea of the building and all the teachers. And so it was just kind of like an easy into the school system. And then pre-K, and then it just really flew, and it was nice. The flow of things, it went really, really smooth. It made it really easy for him.
So you mentioned earlier, but I don't want to get there yet until now, about what you do. You work for the school system. Tell us what you do.
I'm a bilingual facilitator, and I am so blessed. This is probably the best job ever. I have the opportunity to help families, to be that voice. I always tell my parents, I'm like, I'm your voice. You can use me. I'm going to be that transition. You don't have to be afraid. Sometimes our parents are a little scared to even go into the building or say anything, and they need to be heard. You know, and I always tell them, your kids are just as important as any other kid in this school. And so that's what I do. I try to be that voice that bridge that gap and help them and empower them to be a part of the community and be an active parent.
Wonderful. And I think it is cultural shock for them because they were not involved in their, maybe when they were a child in their home, back home, the parents were not involved in the school system because it was not part of the culture.
Right.
So here is something that they are learning, like, oh, really, I can go to school, like you said earlier, or can I go to eat lunch or be part of the meeting or the parent-teacher conferences that we have?
Yes, or just go and volunteer for a book fair. And they were so happy. It's like, we didn't know we could do this. And they could just, you know, be a part of it. And they feel so happy to be there and be helpful.
And they feel welcomed as well.
Yes.
I know our schools are working really hard, hand in hand with the school personnel, administrators, and all the executives of the Board of Education in welcoming our schools every day more and more in a way that everybody has a chance for good education, public education in our schools. So it's great that you do, and we appreciate you having you part of the team, and I know you do a great job as a bilingual facilitator.
Thank you.
So last thing, something that you can tell me about an aha moment when you came to the United States, or a wow moment that you were like, okay, I have to share this with you today.
Oh my goodness. Wow, I don't know. I'm not sure. Something that was, again, a lot of little differences, but I guess the biggest difference was when I first came here after I got married. I didn't realize that you guys go to bed really early here in the United States. So that was a big adjustment for me, because I'm a night owl, and in Mexico we just kind of go, and we always say we'll sleep someday for a long time. So we gotta get the most out of life, and that was one of the biggest adjustments. And it's like, oh, but you need it. You need to sleep. So.
Speaking of adjustments, and then that you were a night owl, that you'll be hanging out on the streets, because Veracruz is a very busy state. There's always something going on. Carnivals.
Yes.
Like in Brazil, they have carnivals. And yes, you were saying earlier, you mentioned to me earlier in a different conversation, that you were the queen of the carnival. So tell me about it before we go.
Okay, real quick. It's a very important party, kind of like Brazil. So we have it once a year. And the biggest thing for me is that it was in connection with the school, the elementary school. They decided that it would be good for my education to do this, and the entire school got together to fundraise. And so I was the queen, but everybody was with me. So my entire school was behind me. So that was very nice.
Well, thanks for sharing that, and I know we have some more information. So maybe next time we can talk some more about you.
Sure.
And thank you for being part of Global Perspectives today.